Good afternoon. This is Congressman Randy Fine from the 6th Congressional District of Florida, and we are having our first and hopefully only virtual press conference on the government shutdown. I say only because it is my sincere hope that this comes to an end. So we have a number of media folks that are on the line, as well as we are broadcasting this press conference across all of our social media channels. Down below, it will tell those in the media what you have to do in order to be able to ask a question. I have some opening comments, and then I look forward to asking your questions. I would ask a little bit of grace. This is the first time we're doing a virtual press conference, so hopefully all the technology is going to work the way that it is supposed to. But I think it's important to be able to share what's going on with the media and my constituents who are going to be watching the live feed at the same time. So today is day 19 of the Democrat shutdown. I think it's important that people be reminded what happened here. On September 22nd, the U.S. House of Representatives passed something called a Clean Continuing Resolution. That is a bill that basically says keep funding the government at the exact same levels it's been funded before. Make no changes that Republicans like, make no changes that Democrats like, just keep doing the same thing. And we did that because we thought we needed 7 more weeks to finish the budget process in a bipartisan way. You have to pass 12 bills, appropriations bills, from the House and the Senate in order to fund the government. And all 12 of those had been out of committee. Some of those had passed off the floor, but we weren't done. It's sort of needing a couple extra days to get your term paper done. We thought we needed 7 more weeks. So without sticking a bunch of stuff in that bill, short bill, extend it for 7 weeks. And Democrats popped up and said, no, we are not going to extend the government for 7 weeks unless you will spend $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion, by the way, that they did not provide any means to pay for. Their proposal did not include tax increases. It didn't include any government spending. They made no effort to pay for it. They didn't even pull out their tax the billionaires nonsense. They just said we want the government to borrow $1.5 trillion. And a big chunk of that $1.5 trillion was to pay for free health care for illegal immigrants. 200 billion of that $1.5 trillion for free health care for illegal immigrants, borrowed from our children and grandchildren. We said, look, if you want to have these debates as part of the budget, you have those debates, but you do not shut down the government in order to get free health care for illegal immigrants. Their other demand was for us to agree that the COVID pandemic is ongoing, that the United States re-enter the COVID pandemic response, and that we flood the market with COVID money like when the pandemic started. And I think we should have that debate as well. Are we still in the middle of a COVID pandemic? I mean, I don't think we are, but if Democrats want to make the argument that we're in the middle of COVID and we need to do all those restrictions, then let them make that. They've also admitted something they should have admitted a long time ago, that the Affordable Care Act is a failure. It is not affordable. And they've asked for billions and billions and billions of dollars to bail out the Unaffordable Care Act. Our view, let's have all of these discussions, but you have them when the government is open. I understand that Democrats like to pass bills to know what's in them. They like to govern in the dark, but we believe in an open government. So for 19 days, the government has been closed, and it has had real effects on the people of Florida. I want to introduce one of them now, who was so kind as to join us in this press conference. We're going to let him share some comments, and maybe I'll have a question or two for him. But we've got Brandon Hartzog. Brandon's here. He's the chair of Local 10 of Council 243 of the Navy Region Southeast for the AFGE, which is a union that represents 820,000 federal and government workers across the country. And we'd like Brandon to tell us what you do. Tell us, what you're doing when we're not in a shutdown, and how the shutdown has affected you and your fellow workers. I think the media would benefit from actually hearing from a regular person who's having to deal with this.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me today. So the shutdown affects us all. I have to do my job as a paramedic firefighter at Naval Station Mayport. I've been there 17 years. We've kind of seen a lot of these. This one's a little different. We've lost people like our IT people. I have to do my reports. When IT people aren't there, I'm not able to do my reports. We've shut down all non-essential folks. They all go home. It affects us essential folks because we're considered accepted employees. So we have to continue to go to work, do everything that we would normally do, our training, our calls, our protecting the base, protecting the local municipalities and everything else that's around us, but we don't get a paycheck. So for me, I live in the congressman's district and I specifically drive 2 hours and 15 minutes one way to work to be able to work for the federal government. So us not getting a paycheck, still required to work, we cannot get there. Um, we've we are a lot of guys that I work with, they're worried about how they're going to pay their child support, their rent. We are we cut down our meals at the fire station to we got guys that are going to the food pantry already. We've already missed half of a check. We're on track to lose a full check. Doesn't look like this is all going to come out until middle of November is what I'm being told. So the longer it goes, the longer it has effects. Our health care, thankfully it still goes, but whenever our checks turn back on, we're going to get taxed heavily and all of our healthcare premiums, they're all going to come out of those checks. We're going to get short checks. There's some other agencies, the FBI, Homeland Security, TSA, they're getting super checks right now. So they're getting checks that are going to be their what they missed plus their next coming check. They're going to get a super check where the people that are federal firefighters, federal law enforcement on Navy installations in the southeast part of the United States where we're at, TSA folks, we got about 1,300 people that aren't getting paychecks right now. So it's kind of affecting everybody, affects everybody a little bit differently. The older folks kind of plan for this type of thing. The newer folks, it kills us on recruitment and retention. We can't recruit new firefighters. We're in a stage where a lot of fire departments are being very progressive in Florida, thanks to the Governor DeSantis and stuff. But we're kind of stuck in the Stone Age on schedules and this and that. So them not getting a paycheck really isn't helping us recruit and get new folks in, retain folks. Our retention rate is going down. Our recruitment rate, we're paying all this money to train all these guys that are coming in and stuff like this with the shutdown with them not getting checks. We hired one new guy. He started on Monday and the shutdown started on Monday. So he walked in the door and we're like, hey, thanks. Welcome to our volunteer fire department that works for the federal government because you're not going to be getting paid. All the HR folks, they're not even able to bring on people. Any kind of HR problems that we're having to work through that. They did bring back a select few of them to handle mission essential type task, but we're still missing those type of folks at our workplace as well.
So Brandon, so let me see if we can sort of distill this down. So there are 155,000 federal workers in Florida. You're one. So what you're
Yes,
saying in your job that you have, some of your workers that you need to be effective at your job aren't
yes,
at work at all. They've been sent home because they're deemed non-essential, and you still have to go to work, but
yes,
you aren't getting paid. Does that distill this? Now let me
the
ask you this
best. Yes, sir.
question. So members of Congress, the people who did this to you,
Mhm.
they are still getting paid. Now,
A
and by
lot.
the way, I want you to know, I asked that my pay be withheld because I thought it's immoral for me to get paid, but you not. But many Democrats in the Senate who voted to keep the government shut down, there are 45 of them, they are still collecting their paychecks while you don't get paid. How
Yes,
does
sir.
that make you feel that there are Washington politicians getting their paychecks, but you can't get yours?
Congresswoman Kamek has also done it. She represents some of our folks. Aaron Bean, Congressman Bean, he's actually done it. So we appreciate that. We see you're fighting, see you're trying to stay in the fight with us, and we appreciate
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think it's wrong. I mean, look, I want to keep the government
it.
open. So did Congresswoman Kamek. So did Congressman Bean. We all voted to keep the government open. I think it's
Yes, sir.
the height of hypocrisy for those who are voting to keep the government closed. And Democrats have voted to keep the government closed now 12 times. In fact, there's one Democratic senator from Arizona who, when he was asked about this, said, "How can you expect me not to get paid? I have child support and rent that I have to pay. I mean, to me, the lack of self-awareness by these Washington Democrat politicians is truly disgusting. And frankly, I hope that we'll come back and we'll vote to say, as long as the government's shut down, the politicians aren't getting paid either. So I'm
Yes,
sorry about what you're going through. I mean, if you could
yes,
say, last question, then I'll have a few more comments, and then we'll go to the media. But if you could say anything to those 45 Democrat senators, we only need 5. If there's anything you could say to them to say, please reopen the government, what is it that you would tell them?
please get us to a continuing resolution. That way we can at least get our paychecks. I need to pay child support too. So um, if we don't have child support, we don't pay our child support, we go to jail. So I don't know how the congressman on the other side feels, but I don't want to be in that position. I want to be a federal employee and I want to go to work and I want to do my job. But I still need to feed my family. I got 3 kids. So
Well, I am sorry that you're going through that, and just know that we voted to keep. I don't even like a lot of what's in that continuing resolution, but I thought while we have those broader debates, we have to keep the government open. And Brandon, just so you know, we're fighting to get the government back open. It's part of why I'm doing this today, and I think that we'll keep fighting to try to get 5 of those Democratic senators to do the right thing and vote to reopen the government. So with that, I'm going to give a few more comments. I want people to understand what the Democrats are holding us hostage over. They want $200 billion for illegal immigrants, but they are demanding that we repeal $50 billion that we just passed for American health care for Americans in rural counties. We created a $50 billion rural healthcare hospital fund that, for example, will help the hospitals in Putnam County, which is a rural county that I represent. The Democrats are demanding we end that $50 billion and use that money to pay for illegal immigrants in New York and California to get free health care. It was actually just reported yesterday that in Illinois, they're spending more money in their next budget on free health care for illegal immigrants than they are on building roads. I mean, that's where we've gotten in this country, where Democrats just do not care about Americans because they've fetishized these illegal immigrants. They want $500 million. They've said they won't reopen the government if we don't go back and give $500 million to NPR, which I think is nuts, because NPR is just the media. We can do the media ourselves. The people who are on this call that are going to ask me questions, most of them aren't getting $500 million for the government. They want $4 million for global LGBTQI awareness campaigns, $4 million for LGBTQI democracy grants in the Balkans, $2 million for feminist democratic principles in Africa. This is their proposal. This is their demand. This is what they have said they will allow the government to reopen if we meet their hostage demands. So this is having real effects in Florida. Floridians, we estimate 2,900 people are now on unemployment. We heard from one of the 155,000 people who as a federal employee, we think it's going to cost $4 billion a month in the economic effect on Florida. 2.9 million people in Florida on SNAP very soon may lose their SNAP, including 1.1 million children. And the other one that really affects us is federal flood insurance, which has been shut down. And so people cannot buy houses if they need a mortgage, and their mortgage company requires them to have federal flood insurance. So the consequences of this are real, and Democrats would rather have, I'm an idiot rallies yesterday to just sort of talk about ridiculous, stupid things than actually solve the problems. What's ironic, the last thing I'll say, and then I'll take questions. When Joe Biden was in charge, Barack Obama was in charge, and the government shut down, they closed parks. They actually spent money to shut down parks because they wanted to punish people. All those people having their I'm an idiot rally yesterday got to have those oftentimes on federal parks that are open, despite the fact that we are in a shutdown right now. It's time for Democrats to go back to work. It's time for Democrats to vote to reopen the government. They'll have another chance, I think, tomorrow. And I hope they take it because I can tell you this, I am ready to get back to work solving the problems. We're working hard in the district, but there's a lot of bills that we need to get moving, and we need to get that budget done. So it's time for Democrats to reopen the government and let us come back to work. So with that, I'll tell my team if we've got questions from any of the media. This is where our technical things will be challenging. Let's see here. All right. This is neat. All right. WKMG News and Click Orlando's asking, some folks are donating food, money, etc. to federal workers during the shutdown. Are there any Central Floridians who are affected by the shutdown reaching out to your office looking for any such help? That's a great question. I'll answer this next one in a minute. The answer is yes, they are. I should make clear all of my staff is considered essential. So much like Brandon, my 15 people on my team, they are coming to work every day, and yet they are not getting paid. Ironically, I'm the only one who could get paid. But I sent a letter saying, don't pay me. So me and no one in my team is being paid, but all of our offices are open. So if you need help, go to fine.house.gov, which I think may be backwards. We'll have to figure that out for next time. The screen is mirrored, but if you look over my shoulder, you can read backwards. Fine.house.gov. You can find out where one of our 6 offices are, and you can call tomorrow. My team will be there, and they will try to help you as best they can. The problem is many of the people they're calling can't help them. So, all right. So there was a second part to that question. If so, what specifically are they asking for, and how might people get it to them? Well, the big thing we're getting is how to get the government open. People are asking, why is the government closed? And we're fighting for that. We will take this and we will come up with more resources that people can look into. But the idea that our federal workers have to go to food banks because Democrats are prioritizing the needs of illegal immigrants, it's simply immoral. It's wrong. It's disgusting. It's a great question. And we'll put some more material out through my social media on the resources that are out there. But again, if you need help with something, we are open, fine.house.gov. I represent 6 counties. And we have an office in each one of them. So the goal was to be no more than 30 minutes from where people live. So they can call the office tomorrow and someone will help them. Next question. My son is stationed in Japan with the Navy. Do you know if he will get his next paycheck if the government remains shut down? This is a question from Maria in Daytona Beach. That I don't. And that's what's horrible. President Trump found some R&D money that he could move around in order to pay our troops. Now, Democrats said, oh, no, don't pay the troops. You know, it's crazy. I mean, they've even talked about suing the president to stop him from doing that. But that is a real risk, that the Democrats' continued desire to keep the government shut down in order to demand this $1.5 billion. It's a real possibility. But all they have to do is vote for the clean continuing resolution. We can debate free healthcare for illegal immigrants. We can debate LGBTQ grants. We can debate going back into a COVID pandemic. We can debate bailing out the Unaffordable Care Act. We can have all of those debates when the government is open. But because they know that their arguments are garbage, they don't want to have those debates in the light of day. They talk about getting 4 people together in a smoke-filled room and working it out. They want to cut me and every other congressman out of it and just cut these deals in a back room so they can hide the failures of their policy. So I don't know that he'll get paid, and it breaks my heart. So what can you do? What can you do? Florida Senators Ashley Moody and Rick Scott are voting to open the government. We're not the problem. Florida's never the problem, to be honest. But if you know people in Georgia, both of their senators are voting to keep the government closed. If you know anyone that has a Democrat senator, call them and tell them, call their senator and tell them to reopen the government. That's what we can do, is put pressure on these people who are fighting for illegal immigrants over American citizens. Next question. Trump only has so much time in office. Isn't the shutdown slowing down the Trump agenda? Scott in Palatka. Yeah, Scott, you're absolutely right. That is, I believe, a big part of why the Democrats are doing what they're doing. And I've made this point to Speaker Johnson. We have amassed so many wins over these 9 months working on President Trump's agenda. Their goal is to hurt America and to stop us from working. And I think that is part of the reason they keep the government closed. You know, this is part of the goal is to hurt us. And it bothers me that I have a whole lot of bills that I've been working on for the benefit of our community, and we're not doing those. We just learned that all committees were canceled for the next 2 weeks, no matter what. So even if we go back, it'll be, to work on things on the floor. But this is having real effects. But I think Democrats just want to stop the Trump agenda, and they're willing to spike the country in order to do it. Next question. Jen, and that's a nice picture. Congressman, with the exception of paying for our military members, which we absolutely need to do, the world still seems to be moving despite this shutdown. Does that speak to the lack of need for much of what our government does? Well, yes and no. Part of the reason the world is continuing to operate is because you've got people like Brandon who are going to work and not getting paid. So, that's like the worst of all. So the government's not really shut down. We just have free workers. And that's a terrible thing. But yes, the government is too big and it is too bloated. And that's why you're seeing Russ Vought and the president start to lay off permanently some of these government workers that we don't need. There is no question that the government is too big. We're spending $1 trillion plus a year that we don't have, and we have to shrink it. And we need to have those debates in the light of day. And I think it's a fair point. But part of the reason the shutdown is not hurting people more is because Donald Trump is doing everything possible to minimize the pain of the shutdown, and because we have heroes like Brandon and my staff who are willing to go to work even though they're not getting paid. Are there quiet bipartisan talks happening behind the scenes that the public doesn't see? This is can you put that up there? I didn't see the name again. Amanda in Sorrento. I think there are on what happens next. I think people are, we've got to get the budget done. I think there's still good work being done on that. I think our side is really having a serious discussions about what to do about the Unaffordable Care Act. But no, as it relates to reopening the government, as the speaker says, there's nothing to negotiate. There's nothing for us to take out. The clean continuing resolution has 0 Republican priorities in it. So there's nothing for us to say, fine, we'll give you this if you give us that. All it does is fund the government at existing levels for 7 weeks and changes nothing. The Democrats continue to say, we don't care. Don't pay our friends who are working, but we want $200 billion for free healthcare for illegal immigrants. What we need to do is the American people need to rise up and tell 5 Democratic senators, stop catering to the I'm an idiot rally and go and do your job. How are agencies prioritizing who works and who doesn't? This question's from Sue in DeLand. That's largely a function of the people that are in charge in making a decision about who's essential and who is not. In my office, I had to make that decision. I could have decided that some of my people weren't essential. But for example, the policy is we couldn't have interns, which I thought was ironic because interns don't get paid, but interns are considered non-essential. And we had to, and none of our interns, I feel bad for them. We got college kids in Washington trying to get class credit, and they're just sitting in their apartments waiting because we're not allowed to have them come in and intern and do good work. So it's the executives are making that decision of who's essential and who's not. How are you finding creative ways to keep serving constituents during the shutdown? Well, my staff and I were keeping the offices open. We're going out and making visits. We're showing up. It's hard to plan. Honestly. So during the August recess, I made 81 visits to the district. I visited 81 speeches and meetings and presentations, but we knew we had a 5-week period of time to plan things. Right now, we live day by day. Tomorrow, the Senate Democrats could come to their senses and vote to reopen the government. And then we'll go back to DC and get back to work. But on a day-by-day basis, we're trying to come up with ways to communicate now people. We came up with this idea like Thursday or Friday. I said, hey, let's do a virtual press conference so we can talk to people. And I know I'll be heading up into the district and all over the district, over the course of this week once or twice. So we're trying to get the word out. We're trying to get the communication out. And the number one thing we can do is tell people to call their friends in Democrat states and tell their senators to reopen the government. Meta Minton. Congressman Fine, you called the No Kings rally the I Am an Idiot rally. Did you see any of the coverage, and what did you think is motivating the participants? Meta Minton Villages News.com. I did not see any of them personally. I saw some of the coverage about it. You know, I think we've just got a lot of stupid people in the country. I mean, to call Donald Trump a king, the man who has gotten more votes for president than anyone in the history of the United States. More people. He's gotten more votes for president than anyone in history. It's crazy. If we had kings, there wouldn't have been protests yesterday. If we had kings, the government would be open. But I think you have people who are so blind in their hatred. And frankly, within the Democratic Party, we have so many who hate America. And that's something that's changed our politics over the last 30 years. 30 years ago, Republicans and Democrats all wanted a successful America. They just may have differed on how to get there. Make no mistakes, I serve with people like Ilhan Omar who hate the country she represents. Hurting America is the goal for many Democrats, not helping it. And I think you saw that in much of the rhetoric that was shared at those rallies. These people believe fundamentally that America is an evil place, a bad place, an unjust place, and they want to hurt it. And then you've got us that are fighting hard to try to save it. And I think that's a big part of what's behind a lot of those rallies yesterday. DJ 462. Do you think there should be a law passed to prevent Congress from being paid during shutdowns? I can answer that question very easily. Absolutely. I've co-sponsored a bill to do it. And if we do have to go back to Washington, I hope that is something that we will consider. But something that the media should report, and I challenge the reporters who are watching this to do this, is they should be putting out research that shows there are 45 Democratic senators who are voting to keep the government closed. How many of them have chosen to withhold their pay? That is something the American people ought to know. Or how many, I'm sure some have. But the ones who are saying, do as I say, not as I do, need to be held accountable for the hypocrites that they are. Me and many of my colleagues have chosen to withhold our pay, and we want the government to be open. But the ones who are voting to close it because they have these hostage demands, how many of them are getting paid? And no one should be getting paid. I think that's part of the problem. If you're a Democrat senator and you're still getting your paycheck and all of your benefits and everything else, so their constituents are getting hurt. They don't care. They should care, and they should have to pay. They should have to pay the price as well. Has the American public become numb to shutdowns? I don't think so. I think the challenge is that the consequences have not been so substantial that people are calling. But as more people don't get paid, as services get stronger, I think more people will get upset. And I don't know. I'm not numb to it. I think this is immoral and it's wrong. And I don't think this is any way that this shows why the Democrats should not be in charge. I mean, to simply say you will not allow the government to function if we don't give illegal immigrants free health care, frankly, it's as close to treason as I think you'll find. All right, so we're going to be wrapping up soon. Let me give some final comments here. I appreciate everyone. I can't wait to see how many people watched across all of our social platforms. If you're not following me on social media, @RepFine is the handle on all of them, whether it's X or Instagram or Facebook or Rumble or YouTube. That is our handle on all of them, @RepFine. You can also go to fine.house.gov to get information, sign up for our newsletter, and if you need to talk to us, we are around. If you have speaking requests or things, if there's issues over the next 2 weeks where frankly, I'm on a day-to-day basis, if there are scheduling opportunities where I can come and visit you and help, we are looking for ways to serve our constituents at home since we can't serve them in Washington because the Democrats have shut down the government. And I just appreciate everyone doing it. And my number one thing I would say to people, Florida's not the problem. It never is. But if you know people in Georgia, if you know people in Virginia, if you know people in New York or Massachusetts or wherever these 45 Democrat senators are from, call your friends, tell them to call their senator and demand they reopen the government. We can have all these debates when the government's reopened. I look forward to those debates because we will win those debates. We will win the debate where we say COVID's over. We will win the debate over whether illegal immigrants should have $200 billion in free healthcare. We will win the debate over whether we should be funding LGBTQ nonsense in foreign countries. And we will win the debate about the failure that is the Unaffordable Care Act. Let's have those debates, but we have them when the government is open again and we make sure people like Brandon are getting paid. So thank you guys for watching. We will do another one of these in a few days if we need to, but hopefully we won't have to because the government will be open. Thanks everybody for watching.